because I talked too much about everything. Does anybody else have anything for me? So Alex, you gave me yours. I think everybody else gave me their Herodotian history. Before I forget, because I did forget yesterday, I would like to tell you what I'd like you to write for me this week. We are going to do, because we're in the process of just beginning this series of plays, we can't really, I want to wait until we've read another play to really write on these plays. I would like you to write one of those summas. You know, just a short answer, one paragraph thing. You remember we were doing those before? Okay, when you don't have any other writing. And here's your question. I want you to address, does Agamemnon deserve his death? And you can include anything related to that you want, all right? On the one hand, we could argue that no one deserves death. But I just want you to look at it critically, and hopefully when we read the play through, and hopefully as you read it, you could see that there is more at issue than Agamemnon's. There's other perspectives, all right? I want to make it perfectly clear I'm not condoning murder in any way, shape, or form. I feel like I should put that disclaimer out there. Not a fan of murder. Don't do it. But, so I'm asking you, do you think you deserved it? You could also explore, what other options were there? Okay, so this is not a full-out lost tools of writing essay where you have to have everything, you know, just tell me what you think and then share your ideas with me. Yes. Yes, yeah, 200 to 300 words, somewhere like that, like a third of a page, half a page. If you go a little over that, because that's kind of a big question, then I feel like you might have enough that you want to say that it goes a little longer. That's fine, okay? But everybody got that? We're good? All right, so no long paper this week. The art of the week is a photograph that I took. I think my son took it actually. From the Acropolis. I'm going to pass it around. This is looking down at the theater of Dionysus. Down below, so it is with a zoom lens, you know. Looking down, this is where Agamemnon was performed for the first time. This is where that trilogy of plays that we're reading was presented at a festival. And I just think that is way cool, that we know where we have all three plays. This is 2,500 years ago. And we know what the plays were, and we know where it was performed, and some of the seats are still there. That's just cool. So Alex, send that around. And then I want to really do a quickie look at Plutarch's Solon and Lycurgus. I hope you find Plutarch fairly straightforward. He's just, basically he starts out, what's the weight? Did you not read those? It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, yes, but I had, and I said also we're reading Solon's, or Plutarch's Lycurgus. It's okay. It's okay. So just chill. Just chill out. So here's the thing. So everybody, so in case it escapes your notice, so in each week, you know, so we are on, in my world, we're on week 14. It ought not to be hard to figure out ever because it's just right after the ones that you just did. Okay, so if you, and it's understandable because if you didn't turn the page, then the next page says Plutarch's well, for this week, it says, this is this week. It says the libation bearers, and then you turn, it says Plutarch's Themistocles, Plutarch's Aristides. So just start there. Don't worry about person. It's okay. But does everybody understand? Okay. I'm sorry if I was unclear. Yes. So I want to just breeze through Lycurgus first. That's not the order I gave them to you. I put Lycurgus and Solon together because they both reorganized the governments of their respective cities, right? Sparta and Athens. So Lycurgus, hopefully you will find Plutarch to be not rambly like Herodotus. He does, I told you this before, do you remember when we did those prayers, praise of a saying? And one of the elements was praise of the person who spoke the saying. Well, praise of a person is actually another form, an encomium. And part of praising a person is praising their heritage. This was just the set. Like when you start talking about a person, you talk about their family history. That's where you always start. So every time you read one of these, he's going to start, they say that his great-grandparents were blah, blah, blah. But don't freak out. It's like, oh, we got a Herodotus thing going here. No, we don't. He's going to spend a paragraph or two telling you. This was his famous ancestors. This was his history. It's just the set form. Then he's just going to tell you episodes from his life, basically. Anecdotes and episodes from this person's life that's hopefully readable and relatable, and you know what's holding it together. Unlike Herodotus, it's the guy's life story. Got it. So let me look up my Lycurgus, page 52. So I don't know, if you want me to tell you the pages, I am in this Dryden one that a lot of you have, but it's okay if you don't. It's totally fine. Just slightly different translation, but doesn't matter. Lycurgus was, as I said, the Spartan lawgiver, and the first question I asked you was, he traveled around the Mediterranean. You might remember that he was the uncle to the heir to the throne of one of the kings of Sparta. But the kid was not old enough to rule, so he stepped in. And then eventually he got accused of making a power grab. Like, you just want to bump your nephew off. I was like, yeah. Do you remember the story? Yeah. His mom came to me and said, do you want to bump the kid off either before or after birth, and then we can have a kid and he can be king? And he pretended. It's like, oh, yeah, when the child is born, send him to me and I'll take care of it. The child was born, he sent him to Lycurgus, and Lycurgus holed him up at the dinner party and said, behold the new king of Sparta. All right, he wasn't going for that. But eventually, because it just was awkward, there were rumors, I think he wants to take over, I think he wants to bump off his nephew. It's like, you know what, I'm going traveling. And in his travels, the first question I asked you is, what did he investigate as he traveled around the Mediterranean? What did he look into, Gabby? Culture and politics. In particular, he visited Crete, and then he went to Ionia. That's those Greek cities in Asia Minor, Miletus and Sardis and all those ones that had rebelled. And Plutarch tells us this: from Crete he sailed to Asia, with design, as is said, to examine the difference, I'm at the bottom of page 55, betwixt the manners and rules of life of the Cretans, which were very sober and temperate, and those of the Ionians, a people of sumptuous and delicate habits, as so as to form a judgment, just as physicians do by comparing healthy and diseased bodies. I don't feel like that's a compliment to the Ionians. If the Cretes are the healthy body, the Ionians are the diseased body. But they're cushy, right? They sit on their silks and they eat their bonbons, and the Cretans are tough, Well, I made that up, Alex. But that's my idea of luxury. They used to say bonbons, little chocolates. Okay, well, that's what they were doing in Ionia, in your world, okay? Unlike the Cretans, who are physically fit and hardy. So he compares this, and he takes this idea home, right? Do you remember the end of Herodotus, by the way? That comment of Cyrus, if you go conquering other people, prepare to be a slave. because you will get wealthy. And when you get wealthy, you will lay on the couch and play video games. You will not attend to business. And then someone will conquer you and enslave you. It's the circle of life. Unlike, yes, the Lion King circle of life. That's the political circle of life. So he brought home these ideas. He came home to Sparta, and on page 56, I asked you, what did the Delphic oracle pronounce about his laws? Matthew, what did he say?
That they will be the best, and the government that adheres them will be the most famous in the world.
These are the best laws, Lycurgus, and if you observe them, you will be the best in the world, the strongest in the world. I don't know if they're the best, but Sparta is still famous. And as long as they observed his rules, they were top dog. They really were. I want to just read another section on page 56, talking again about what he was doing to the government. He must act as wise physicians do in the case of one who labors under a complication of diseases. By force of medicines, reduce and exhaust him, change his whole temperament, and then set him upon a totally new regimen of diet. You know, if somebody's really, really sick, maybe you have to do everything. You've got to medicate them, you've got to maybe sedate them to give them rest. Maybe you completely change what they eat, give them an exercise regimen. You're completely transforming them into health. And Lycurgus felt like that's what he was doing in Sparta. Remember the Spartan laws before? We had our friend Draco, who is not our friend, because the death penalty was the penalty for everything. He's the guy who said, yeah, thieves deserve to die. Murderers deserve worse than that, but I can't think of anything worse to do to them. So we'll just kill them all. People get tired of that after a while. You need therapy. So you need therapy not to become a lawgiver. So, Lycurgus is asked, will you please fix this because this is not doable? And he does. He sets up some pretty wild rules that we'll talk about in a minute. But, you know, Sparta has two kings. They're both descended from children of Heracles, supposedly. So they're cousins, sort of distant cousins, these two lines, all right? And then you have people. And so if kings tell you what to do all the time, and you don't get to make a choice, are you happy? No. If the people just mob and make all the rules on the whim of the moment, are we generally long-term happy? No, because people are crazy. There's a quote, I feel like it's from I think it's from The Fugitive. I feel like Tommy Lee Jones is saying it. But anyway, he says, a person is intelligent, but people are stupid and fickle, and you know it. Like, individual people are sensible, but when you get people together in a group, they sort of lose it, and they do things they wouldn't normally do if they were alone. Case in point, flash mobs, looting stores, and stuff like that. Okay. So we need something in between. If the people rule, things get a little crazy. If the kings tell you everything to do, people get unhappy. So that was my question. What important role did the Senate play? What's the Senate for? All right. Oh, it's so hard.
It was a collection of smart men that the people approved, and they would kind of act as one person.
Yes.
As a king. So he was combining the mob rule and the tyrant king to, there are other people, and you guys approved them,
Yes.
But they act as one person.
Yes. So we have the kings over here and the people over here. The authoritarian, possibly tyrannical rule, tyrannical in our sense, not in the Greek sense, and we have the crazy people. Then you have the Senate. So if this side starts getting too strong, they pull this direction, right? If this side gets too strong, they pull this direction. So it's our old friend, the division of powers that we have in our government. The idea that when you put all the power in one spot, it just never goes well. Because the spot with the power keeps getting more and more and more, and everybody gets less and less. Yeah, kind of. That did not go well. Yes, and you know, in the medieval year we talk, because my junior high kids are doing medieval times right now, and the pull of the church, who's on top, who's in charge, right? But Sparta, so Lycurgus very cleverly got this system of balance. But the things we remember Sparta for are not balanced government and senates. It's for being whacked out crazy military state, right? That's what we think of them. So the next question I asked you is, what measures did Lycurgus take to protect the Spartans from greed? Matthew, give me one and then you can give me another one.
He made the people renounce their property and then divided the land for 30,000 shares.
Step one, everybody has the same amount of land. We're all even. If it sounds a little communist, but it's your land. It's not government land. Okay, that's the difference. Okay, Carson, give me another one. Yes, he gave them worthless money. He gave them money made out of lead, iron, not gold or silver. So guess what? No one else in Greece takes your money because it's stupid iron money. So you can't go to Thebes or Corinth or Athens and buy a boatload of stuff and bring it home because you don't have any money they will take. Not to mention that they take the iron, and apparently, I know nothing about the smelting of iron or blacksmithing, but they temper it, in vinegar, which makes it brittle. You can't even melt your iron down and make a hoe from it. It's not worth anything. And it is, because it's not worth anything. And it's horribly heavy. Hey, I'll give you my cow for, I don't know, 10 pounds of iron. Like you're toting your, Like imagine your purse. Imagine your wallet in Sparta.
Yeah,
no.
In the book, it described the money as like you couldn't even fit it in a wardrobe.
Yes.
Like
enough to do anything.
Heavy. It was like weight heavy, as if you were.
Yes.
Like, as if you were going.
What? Yes. Who steals your iron money? Nobody. Nobody steals your iron money. Did somebody have another measure? Was there another one? Yeah.
He made life so hard for the gold workers and silver workers because he discouraged them so much that then other Spartan artisans came up working wood and other like more simple arts.
Because say I'm a Spartan artist and I produce a masterpiece, who am I going to sell it to? Nobody, except for my wardrobe full of iron. Don't want that. So they stopped. And now maybe I go sell it in Athens and then they pay me in gold, go home, can't use my gold for anything. So they stopped really concentrating on things we would say, artistic pursuits and practical pursuits. So really good furniture. Because furniture is practical. You got to sit, you got to have a table. Things like that. That's what they put their energy into rather than things of beauty. Of course, you can mentally contrast this with Athens. you know, things surrounded by things of beauty. So yes, this is what he did, and he hoped that, oh, another thing, he banned highly discouraged visitors from other places. Like there was, well, because he didn't want them bringing in their ideas.
Yeah.
You come in with your video games, you know what I mean, and they see you sitting on your Spartan chair, but you're playing, ooh, what's that? Where'd you get that? I'd like one of those. My neighbors don't have those. You see, and it creeps in. Have you guys ever seen the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy?
No.
Do you know this movie? Over Christmas, you have to find The Gods Must Be Crazy. Okay, this is an African movie. It was made in the 1980s. An African movie?
How are we going to? Oh, is it English?
I think so. It's been a long time. I don't think it has subtitles. But it's, anyway, but they speak, it's dear to my heart because I was taking an African history class at the time in college, and my teacher had actually worked among the people that are filmed. Anyway, so the plot of The Gods Must Be Crazy is there's this African completely, this tribe completely cut off from all modern civilization, and they all have everything equal. And one day a plane was flying over and somebody threw a Coke bottle out of the plane, and it landed in this tribe. And then, see, they find the different things you can do with the Coke bottle. You can grind, it's hard, you can grind your grain with the Coke bottle. You can roll things out with the Coke bottle, but you see there's only one Coke bottle. And so the people start, and I'm not going to tell you what they eventually do with the Coke bottle, but anyway. Well, I will tell you this part. I will tell you what they do. Eventually somebody whacks someone else over the head with the Coke bottle because they all want the Coke bottle. No, this is the 1980s. This is glass.
How it doesn't shatter.
No, because Coke bottles are thick, Ethan. They are thick. Okay, so anyway, it's entertaining. I don't think there's anything objectionable in any way, shape, or form for any of the sensibilities of young people or your families. I think I can, without reservation. What? Oh, okay. There's.
Have you ever seen like my dad? Have you ever seen the meme where it's like radar and all the reasons like you get this radar and it's like?
Oh no. But I.
What?
Yes, there is. It's not as good. Okay, come back to me. I'm sorry about that digression. After I said I wasn't going to do that today. So, in Sparta, everybody had the same. So we don't want people bringing in stuff and them wanting to emulate the things that other people have. Okay, so I asked you, I'm not going to go back over every single thing he talked about because you could read it for yourself when we talked about some of it, the training of young boys and that sort of thing. But is there anything that you particularly admired or anything you found particularly extremely odd? Yes.
I really admired how simple and practical everything was, because I've seen that when you get, like, they had their priorities.
Mm-hmm.
They had their priorities straight, and they trained. Now, there was a lack of family. There was a lack of
A horrible lack of family.
I mean, and all of that. But I do admire how loyal and tough the guys became. But it was missing out on one of the most important parts of being human.
And maybe the answer to that is we can't have everything.
Yeah.
Everything we get, think about that. Everything we get, we give something up. Every new technology that we get, we give something up. And it's just a question of, is the thing we get better or more important than the thing we lose? And sometimes we don't ask that question, do we? We just embrace it. Yes, because the new thing is also going to bring new problems, isn't it?
Like having a new iPhone 11.
Then I can't. Did anyone else have a particular custom or Spartan rule that seemed notable to you, just stuck out to you? Yes. Children belong to the state. You know, this is something we hear again in the news, that people, especially in the homeschooling community, sometimes complain the public school system treats children like they belong to the state. And I'm not making I'm not saying everybody in public school is evil or bad at all. But there just is a tension there, right? Who are we educating these children for? Is it for the good of the state, or is it because they are individuals and for the good of their individual lives and their families? That's the question. And free education, cool, but it comes with a price.
But here's the thing, where I used to go to school, they're basically doing it wrong because they kicked out, because they make the rule that like if you even mention the Bible, you'll be suspended.
See, that's disturbing.
And they're like teaching like evolution there and a bunch of other stuff.
They're teaching it like
that you're not even a couple of stuff that you're not even supposed to learn.
Okay. Okay. Whoa. I love it when this happens, but it's helpful if we do more one at a time so that everybody can. I do need a gavel. I could just, like, if necessary, I could aim it. No, I will not do that. Yeah, it is disturbing but it was effective. It worked, and so it all depends, I guess, on what one's priorities are and what your goals are, isn't it? The last question I asked you is, what do you think Plutarch thinks of Lycurgus? Okay, because he does remark, oh, this seems like an odd thing to do. Well, anybody else have another, what do you think Plutarch thinks of Lycurgus? What do you think, Matthew?
He admires his virtuous death. He refused to not to be a burden in his old age about dying.
Mm-hmm.
He also admires the virtues that he enforced in Sparta. He acted instead of just thought, like a lot of philosophy.
Okay. I'm going to add a couple of just quotes from Plutarch here. It says, he filled Lacedaemon all through with proofs and examples of good conduct, with the constant sight of which, from their youth up, the people would hardly fail to be gradually formed and advanced in virtue. That sounds like praise. He filled Sparta with examples of virtue. And Plutarch also says this at the top of page 78. Top of page 78. Oh, okay. It's talking about okay, so I need to backtrack. The reason that Sparta and Athens worked, that their systems worked, is because they were built on slave labor. Have you ever noticed that none of these people are growing food or doing anything to feed themselves necessarily? This is because they have a slave force to do it. Sparta conquered the neighboring peoples, and they call them Helots. Sometimes it's pronounced Helots. I always heard Helots. H-E-L-O-T, Helot. The Helots were the slave class, and life was not good if you were a Helot. Sometimes there were insurrections, and they just massively massacred them. They say that they used to bring Helots, get one of them drunk, and then bring it in to where the young boys were and show them how stupid people look when they get drunk as a deterrent. You don't want to look like that. Look at this idiot. Don't do that. But one thing that is rumored that they did is that sometimes for training purposes, they just opened season on the Helots, like they opened season on deer, and you could just go out and kill them with impunity. Spartan citizens could. This is not a good thing. Just let that sink in. But Plutarch, the reason I give you this background is because Plutarch is talking about this, but he doesn't think that Lycurgus okayed that. He doesn't think that's from Lycurgus's time. He thinks that was later. And here's what he says: I cannot persuade myself to ascribe to Lycurgus so wicked and barbarous a course, judging of him from the gentleness of his disposition and justice upon all other occasions. Plutarch admires this man. Maybe he doesn't love all his rules, but he thinks his heart's in the right place. And he even says, this hunt the Helots season, I don't think Lycurgus would do that, because he seems like a just man to me. Before we leave the Spartans, I want to mention one more thing. I did not ask you a question about this, but do you remember in Herodotus, we were joking yesterday that all roads lead back to Herodotus. We just keep talking about them. The class, when I did this class yesterday, about their hair. Remember how at Thermopylae they were fixing their hair, and he asked Democritus, and he's like, yeah, they do that before they go into battle. Plutarch mentions it as well. He says, they took a great deal of care of their hair to have it parted and trimmed, especially against a day of battle, pursuant to a saying recorded of their lawgiver, that, and I feel like this should be posted on beauty shops, a large head of hair added beauty to a good face and terror to an ugly one. Like, hair is always a good thing. If you look good, it'll make you more gorgeous, and if you look bad, it just makes you look even tougher. You should just let it go. Okay. Then we read about Solon. Solon is the Athenian Lycurgus, as it were, although he set up very different systems. Athens did not become a military state. Athens became more of a democratic state where, so remember our kings and our people and the Senate in between? We have more of archons in Athens. There were 9 of them, and they changed every year. And we have an assembly, but the people decide all the issues to come before the assembly, and the people also vote on the issues that are brought before them. So it's heavily weighted this direction. Does that make sense? It's not a nice teeter-totter balance. It's, the people are really in charge, which shows up in cases like, Miltiades saved us in Marathon, but now we hate him because he lied to us. Themistocles, you were great, but we hate you now. Go away. This is going to happen. Thucydides, the author that we're going to read about the Peloponnesian War. Yeah, you screwed up that mission. We relieve you of command. You're no longer a general anymore. And we're fining you. Otherwise, you were really good, but you screwed up once, and we're done with that. You're one chance. One strike and you're out, apparently. But they valued, Sparta valued order, right? Athens valued freedom. Freedom of politics, freedom of expression artistically, freedom of thought philosophically. We don't have any great Spartan philosophers. I saw a meme this morning when I got on Facebook, and it was a list of it said, people, wake up. And it said, sheeple, wake up. And it was a list of the planets. It had all the planets in order, and it had 2 columns. Deaths, number of deaths. It was 0, 0, 0, and then you get to Earth. It's like 20 billion, plus and counting. And then all the other ones, no deaths, no deaths, no deaths. And then it was discovered philosophy. No. On Earth it was yes. The planet that discovered philosophy has all the deaths, they're correlated. They're not. It's not correlated. Okay, Solon. What was the first act of Solon in fixing Athens? What did he do? Say it. What do you think? It was eliminating something. No.
Promised the poor division of the lands and the rich security for their debts.
Okay. Cancellation of debts. Yes. Was the main. Let me see if I can find it, because I like to prove what I say. I don't like to just say things and then you're like, she's making that up. Okay. Why did I write pages 115 and 116? I don't remember. Okay, sorry, didn't underline it in green. I'm sorry, I can't prove it. Will you trust me? I mean, not that Matthew was wrong. Those were all true things. But the very first thing he did is he canceled all debts. Nobody, if you owed money yesterday, you don't owe any money today. Clean slate. Because people were selling themselves into slavery. And for debt. Because they owed money. See, no, here's the controversy, and that's the second part. Solon had friends who, just like Harston said, they knew this was coming down. And so they borrowed money and bought a bunch of real estate. So after it all came through, they didn't owe any money, but they still had the real estate. I know, it's like some insider trading. Yes. And people, Solon, are you a jerk who just made a bunch of, wealth for your friend? Like, no, I didn't know. He claimed he didn't know. I'm going with he didn't know. We can agree to disagree, Karsten. But he, this got him into hot water. But he just wanted to, give everybody a level playing field, just like Lycurgus did. It says, Plutarch tells us a friend came to him and laughed when he was trying to make these laws. He said, laughed at him for imagining the dishonesty and covetousness of his countrymen could be restrained by written laws, which were like spiders' webs, and would only catch, it is true, the weak and the poor, but be easily broken by the mighty and the rich. To this Solon rejoined that men keep their promises when neither side can get anything by breaking them. But then he goes on to say, yeah, but his friend was more right than he was. The strong and the rich do break the laws, and they catch the weak and the poor. Hang on. So he set up the system of laws. The second question I ask is, why did he encourage Athens to pursue trade, being merchants? And why did Lycurgus not? Oh, that's fine. We can go back. It's true. If you have resources for defense, or this is not a new problem, though, is it? It's as old as people. It's as old as politics. But so anybody going into that next question? Why should the Athenians be merchants, but the Spartans should not?
Athenians are more like the ones in their ways.
Okay.
Spartans are more like fighters.
Okay. So if you're spending all your time training and fighting, you have time.
Become the merchant.
Okay.
But with the Athenians, they learn how ways of trading everything, and then they also go to school, so they're able to become merchants in the design
Okay.
and sell on the whole.
Okay.
So they learn that skill, like fishing or welding.
Yes. Yes. Does anybody want to add? I agree with this. Does anybody want to add something?
I just put down for Athens economic growth, you're trading, you're getting resources, and then for Sparta, the economically independent. So you're out there by yourself making your own goods, you have to rely on other countries that, and you don't have all the ideas.
And your money is no good. Like what means of exchange are you going to use for your trading? There's also another one that Plutarch tells us. It says Solon, and I love this line, fitting his laws to the state of things, and not making things suit his laws. I need to set up laws for the people that I see here right now, right? Not for the ideal people and then make my people into those ideal people. No, I need to look at what I'm dealing with and make my laws to suit them. Finding the ground scarce rich enough to maintain the husbandman, and altogether incapable of feeding an unoccupied and leisured multitude, brought trades into credit. You see, the other thing is, Sparta has rich farmland. Athens doesn't. It's a very rocky area of Greece. So I love this idea. Each of these men looked at the people they had, and they looked at the goals they had for them, and then they fit their rules to match the people, rather than forcing the people to go into their mold. It would make sense for people who can't grow their own food to be banned from making money in trade. They're going to need to import stuff. They can't grow it all for themselves. Sparta can.
The thing is that you may present like you just keep it and yourself on yourself. And you can probably if you try hard enough, but when you just like starting out in the world, this is saying Sparta or Athens, you really need to depend on other people with spending money and getting other stuff from them.
Yeah.
And probably buying your own stuff as well before you can actually work on your own.
Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to go, I don't want to pursue this right now, but tuck this away in the back of your mind. Remember the warnings about influx of goods and luxury and what it does to a people. So as we, through the rest of the year, as we take a look at what happens to Athens, okay? I love this legendary quote about Solon. When he was afterwards asked if he had left the Athenians the best laws that could be given, he replied, the best they could receive. Not the same thing, isn't it? Are they the best laws ever? They're the best that they can actually use. So when I was working in my Greek book, you know, which I only have 3 chapters left, it's like going through all of Helots. Like I'd be like on chapter 38 of Helots right now. And so it's tough stuff. But one of the sentences I had was, it is better, it was a quote from Plato, it's people who have bad laws that they actually follow are better off than people with good laws that they ignore. You know, at least one has some level of discipline and the other is just ignoring. I feel like that kind of goes along with that quote. Okay, so Solon set up these rules and then he went traveling. Why did he go traveling? What was he tired of? He was tired. Matthew, what was he tired of?
I'm not sure if it's the correct answer, but so he couldn't change his own laws, people would have to do it.
Okay, so he said, please keep this in place for 10 years and see how it goes. But Plutarch tells us this. Now, when these laws were enacted, some came to Solon every day. Solon! To commend or dispraise them, and to advise, if possible, to leave out or put in something. And many criticized and desired him to explain and tell the meaning of such and such a passage. He, knowing that to do it was useless and not to do it would give him ill will, decided to just go on a very long vacation. Stop coming to me every day and saying, why didn't you do it this way? Did you forget this? You left this out? Would you explain why? No, I won't. I'm leaving. And so he went traveling. He went to various places, but one famous place. He went to Lydia and visited King Croesus. Remember? And Croesus said, have you ever seen anyone more fortunate than me? And he gave his speech. You remember? Beginning of Herodotus? Like, oh, I tried so hard to forget, and now you bring it to me again. It's the same Solon. Although I hate to burst your bubble of joy and all this, but a lot of people think Solon and Croesus didn't really live at the same time. But I say they did.
Yeah.
I say it's a true story. I want it to be true.
Well, Herodotus is the first history book, so technically it's true.
Technically it's true. So my last question about you was Pisistratus. What, do you remember, we talked about Pisistratus a couple times already this year. Pisistratus was a relative of Solon. He's the guy who became a tyrant of Athens. And remember, that doesn't mean he was mean. That means he was not legitimate ruler. He's the guy who paid the 6-foot-tall, beautiful woman to come in on the cart and say she was Athena. He's the guy who had his friends beat him up and then came into town. He's like, yeah, some people beat me up. I need a bodyguard. And they gave it to him. Pisistratus was Solon's relative. And I asked you what his opinion was. I'm just gonna read it to you. It says, Pisistratus, okay.
Which
Page 126. Okay, I'm in the first paragraph of page 126. I'm sorry, I just always forget to tell you that. Affairs standing thus, this is the middle of the paragraph, not really the middle, but affairs standing thus, Solon returned, and was reverenced by all and honored. But his old age would not permit him to be as active, and to speak in public as formerly. Yet by privately conferring with the heads of the factions, he endeavored to compose the differences, Pisistratus appearing the most tractable. For he was extremely smooth and engaging in his language, and a great friend to the poor, and moderate in his resentments. Okay, this all seems like a compliment. He's good to the poor. He's moderate in his resentments. He doesn't go all out for revenge. But then he finishes the sentence like this, and what nature had not given him, he had the skill to imitate. If he's not particularly nice, oh, I can pretend to be nice. He is a smooth operator. And Solon comes in and he says, you know, we need to get all these factions, the pro-Pisistratus, the anti-Pisistratus, we need to get this smoothed out. Pisistratus he's a nice guy, but he's smooth. And a little too smooth. And finally Solon, poor old Solon, elderly Solon, finally just goes home and shuts his door, and he retires from politics. Now, you don't have to turn back, but if you want to, on page 33 of your reading guide, okay, this reading guide I printed, Solon was also a bit of a poet. And I want to read, looked at this when we talked about Solon originally. I want to read this again now. Our city will never perish according to the decree of Zeus or the will of the blessed gods immortal. For such a great spirited guard holds her hands protectingly above it, Pallas Athena, she of the mighty father. So, our town's never going down because the gods let it down. But rather, the townsmen themselves in their folly wish to destroy our great city, persuaded by wealth, and unjust is the mind of the leaders of the demos, the people. For them many grievous sufferings are certain, the fruit of their great hubris, pride. For they do not know how to suppress choros, unlimited desire, or how to conduct the present joys of their feasting in decorous fashion, but instead they grow rich, putting their trust in unjust deeds. Solon said, you know what? I've given you the best laws that you can handle. Now, let's see. It reminds me, isn't Ben Franklin, who when they came after the Constitutional Convention, what have you given us? A republic, if you can keep it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an old lady now, I repeat myself. So how many times I'm going to tell you guys the same story. All right. So next week we're reading Themistocles and Aristides, those two lives. Themistocles is our friend from the Persian Wars, the guy who knew the walls of wood were ships, the guy who sent secret messages to Xerxes saying, newsflash, they're all going to sail away if you don't surround them. Oh, newsflash, I'm keeping them from breaking the bridge so that you can get away. Just remember. And Aristides was his political rival, who got ostracized, but got brought back because they needed his wisdom and his help. Okay, so we're going to read those two lives. Now let's dig into Agamemnon. Next week you also read the second play in the trilogy, The Libation Bearers. That's the second one. You may have them in one book like mine. You may have them in separate books. Doesn't matter. But let's look at Agamemnon for the rest of our time together. I am just so torn. Last night I was not happy because I want to read all of this, but I only have an hour and a half to talk about it. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm done ranting. It just doesn't seem fair. I could spend the whole hour and a half on Agamemnon, but then I just have you read one play. Like, I want to read the lives too. Okay. So, how does Clytemnestra find out the Trojan War is over?
There's these dudes that are just like all the way, and they got these horses and they're like flipping them around for the next week.
The lighting of the beacons. If you have seen the Return of the King, all right, that's what happens. The lighting of the beacons. The message comes, and so they can know very quickly that Troy has been taken, which is kind of cool. Yeah, text. Hey, babe, we're in. Okay. So we meet a watchman at the beginning, and he's been watching, and he says, I know the stars. So I'm going to, if you bring your books, if you bring your play, I will try to tell you what lines I'm in. So it's because sometimes I'll read longer sections of the chorus, and it's easier to follow along. If you didn't bring your book, don't, I'm not going to beat you. All right. But if you remember to throw it in, it'd be helpful. He says, now I watch for the light, the signal. And then I said I was going to tell you where I am, and then I just proceed to start reading and I'll tell you. I'm on line 11, very first page of the play. And now I watch for the light, the signal fire breaking out of Troy, shouting, Troy is taken. So she commands. Who do you think she is? Full of her high hopes. That woman, she maneuvers like a man. This is the watchman. So, at the very first character on play, we find out something about Clytemnestra. And it doesn't mean she's transgender. Weird, like stupidly weird like that. It means she's not, oh, go ahead, Matthew.
This is secretly saying she...
Probably. People write the stupidest stuff like that. You can imagine. She has the political sense of a man. And I'm not dissing women here, but traditionally, people have known that women have brains, but someone needs to raise the children. Because when we just start giving our children to institutions to raise, turn on the news and look around you, and this is what happens, okay? But Greek women particularly, it was a relatively oppressive society for women. Women were seen and not heard in general. They did have the whole realm of the household to manage, and that probably included household slaves, like a large household. But they stayed home, all right? But the Watchman is saying she is running the show like a man runs the show. First question I ask, though, is what choice did she have? The king's been gone for 10 years. Doesn't somebody need to be in charge? Look what happened in Ithaca. Penelope, she maneuvered. She didn't maneuver like a man. She didn't just come out with her iron fist and drive them all out of the building, right? And Ithaca fell apart because nobody was there. But it's a little hint. Everybody this is Argos in this version, not Sparta. Doesn't matter. Just let it go. Sometimes he's in Argos, sometimes he's in Sparta. Doesn't matter. Everybody knows Clytemnestra is one tough cookie. All right. That's not a quote from the play. What? Yeah. So we don't know if she's not trustworthy yet, but we look at her and we think, okay, she's not completely what we expect from our women. Okay, so I just want to hit, I'm hoping you guys understand what this play was about. Agamemnon came home with Cassandra and they went in the house and she killed him. There, that's the plot of the play. If you got that out of the play, we're good. What I'd like to do is focus in on some of the places that give us a little more depth. So in line, it's what 112 maybe. It's at the beginning of a section. It says Clytemnestra is over here doing her thing. She's performing sacrifices of thanks, and the chorus is talking. Remember, we need to know who the chorus is. They're the old men. They didn't go to Troy because they were too old. Their sons went to Troy. Oh, Nestor's just unstoppable. His mouth and body are both unstoppable. And here's what the chorus says. Sometimes the chorus can be a little hard to follow. All right? But don't worry about that. I told you not to worry about that. But they usually have something important to say. Hey, gentlemen, here we go. We ready? Right after Clytemnestra, and at the beginning of that section, so up above 115, like 112, whatever. Oh, but I still have power to sound the gods' command at the roads that launched the kings. The gods breathe power through my song. My fighting strength, persuasion grows with the years. I sing how the flight of fury hurled the twin command, Agamemnon and Menelaus, hurled the twin command, one will that hurled young Greece and winged the spear of vengeance straight for Troy. Now, something happened that day, and the chorus is going to tell us about it. The kings of birds, eagles, two kings of the beaking prows, one black, one with a blaze of silver, skimmed the palace spearhand right, and swooping lower, all could see, plunged their claws in a hare. A mother bursting with unborn young, the babies spilling quick spurts of blood, cut off the race just dashing into life. Cry, cry for death, but good win out in glory in the end. Disgusting, but wait, there's more. But the loyal seer, the prophet's there. You know, whenever birds fly around, we need an interpretation, right? But the loyal seer of the armies studied Atreus' sons, 2 sons with warring hearts. He saw 2 eagle kings devour the hare and spoke things to come. Years pass, and the long hunt nets the city of Priam, the flocks beyond the walls, a kingdom's life and soul. Fate stamps them out. Just like those eagles killed that hare, these 2 kings are going to take Troy. Just let no curse of the gods lower on us first, shatter our giant armor, forced to strangle Troy. I hope there's no curse of the gods involved in this, though. I see pure Artemis bristle in pity. Yes, the flying hounds of the father, the eagles, slaughter for armies, their own victim. Artemis loves the hunt. She likes hunt, but she likes animals, you know, and sort of a weird, often hunters are environmentalists too, you know, because they have respect for the creatures. Artemis cares. She doesn't like that they killed the hare, the pregnant hare, the babies of the hare. A woman, trembling, young, all born to die. She loathes the eagle's feast. Cry, cry for death, but good win out in glory in the end. But suddenly, the hare isn't a hare anymore. It's a woman. What woman? Iphigenia, his daughter. And the chorus, and the seer had said, "Oh, but just don't let there be any curse of the gods."
Oh, that's definitely sounded. It's Agamemnon.
Yes. Yes. So they go on. I'm not going to read the second section, the last section, because it goes on. But I'm reading in line 145. I beg you, healing Apollo, soothe her, soothe Artemis. Soothe her before her crosswinds hold us down and moor the ships too long, pressing us on to another victim. Nothing sacred, no feast to be eaten. The okay, this is just they're so deep, I don't even know where to stop. No feast to be eaten. The architect of vengeance, growing strong in the house with no fear of the husband. Here she waits, the terror raging back and back in the future. The stealth, the law of the hearth, the mother, memory womb of fury, child avenging fury. The chorus just compressed everything. Oh, Artemis, don't be angry, don't want another victim, Iphigenia, another victim, because then what does that bring? An architect of vengeance growing strong in the house with no fear of the husband. Here she waits. This is the chorus. Now, they are retelling what the seer said all those years ago. But they know. They've been there for 10 years watching her. Don't you think they know? They know something's not right. Something's rotten here. And it comes out in the chorus's song. The chorus gives these little slips, sometimes when you read them carefully. It's hard to read them carefully because a lot of it you go through, it's like, I don't know what the heck they're talking about now. But when it makes sense, it really makes sense. Okay, so be patient with me while I skip because I see our time and I want to hit the most important things. Okay, so line 205. This is the chorus talking. And they're reminiscing still. They're reminiscing. I can still hear the older warlord saying, obey, obey, or a heavy doom will crush me. Oh, but doom will crush me once I rend my child, the glory of my house. A father's hands are stained. Blood of a young girl streaks the altar. Pain both ways. And what is worse? Desert the fleets? Fail the alliance? No. But stop the winds with a virgin's blood? Feed their lust, their fury? Feed their fury? Law is law. Let all go well. When do we say, I hope it all goes well? Under what circumstances do we ever say that?
When it probably won't go well.
When it probably won't go well. When we're pretty sure everything's going to go well, we never say, oh, I hope it all goes okay. But you know, you're cooking Thanksgiving dinner. Hope I don't burn the turkey.
Or
Hope.
cook it
Yeah,
too well,
yeah.
And then you cut it, and then all there is hot air.
That's never happened to me. But when we fear something might not, we say, let it all go well. This is the chorus remembering. Now, I gotta bring something else in. Listen to this, because you're gonna love this too. They said, the chorus said something about can't find it. Let no curse of the gods lower on us. What did these guys' dad do? Agamemnon and Menelaus. Yes. Fed his brother his own children. This is, remember this, we talked about this before, and you know, he took his wife, tried to take his throne. He's like, oh, you want to come to dinner? Here, I'm going to serve your kids. You know what you ate? Yes, I ate. I do know. And one survivor, Aegisthus. Aegisthus, who we meet at the end of this play. We'll talk about him in a minute. All his brothers and sisters got eaten by Agamemnon's dad, or by his own dad. They got killed by Agamemnon's dad and eaten by his own dad. Creepy. All right. This is why they refer to this as the curse of the house of Atreus. The guy's name is Atreus, their dad. There is a curse lowering over this house. There already is. And it's only getting worse. Okay. So, okay. So, I want to hit the highlights here. So I'm going to leave out a few things. I'm on line 371. The chorus is talking again. Actually, I'm going up to the top of when the chorus starts at 359. O Zeus, my king and night, dear night, queen of the house who covers us with glories, you slung your net on the towers of Troy. Neither young nor strong could leap the giant dredge net of slavery, all-embracing ruin. Yea, they netted Troy. You know, remember Clytemnestra said that too. You know, the seer said that, I'm sorry. You will throw your net around Troy. They go on, the chorus keeps talking. and 374, and still some will say that heaven would never stoop to punish men who trample the lovely grace of things untouchable. How wrong they are. A curse burns bright on crime. Full blown, the Father's crimes will blossom, burst into the sons. Let there be less suffering. Give us the sense to live on what we need. Bastions of wealth are no defense for the man who treads the grand altar of justice down and out of sight. Our question is, did Agamemnon trample down the lovely grace of something? Did he tread on justice? Clytemnestra thinks so, doesn't she? And the fact that the chorus even brings up the question makes me think maybe they've been thinking about it too. Does that make sense? Keep both of those in mind, because I want to go through in order here, because if I start skipping around, I'm gonna forget things. But hang on to that. So, Clytemnestra comes out and does her little show, right? She says on line 605, oh no, let's go back to 599. Tell him, Agamemnon's on the way, tell him that, and have him come with speed, the people's darling, how they long for him, and for his wife, may he return and find her true at hall, just as the day he left her, faithful to the last, a watchdog, gentle to him alone, savage to those who cross his path. I have not changed. The strains of time can never break our seal. In love with a new lord? In ill repute? I am as practiced as I am in dyeing bronze. I know as much about having affairs and plotting as I do about metalworking. A lot. She knows a lot about those things. Not metalworking. She's not funny. She is disturbing. Oh, I'm sorry. That was starting at line 599, and I went up. I'm sorry. I will say it better. All right. Okay. Okay. I am going to read this. Line 683. Who? What power named the name that drove your fate? What hidden brain could divine your future? Steer that word to the mark, to the bride of spears, the whirlpool churning armies. Oh, for all the world, a Helen. Hell at the prows, hell at the gates, hell on the men of war. From her lair's sheer veils she drifted, launched by the giant western wind, and the long tall waves of men in armor, huntsmen trailing the oar blade's dying spore, slipped into her moorings. Simois' mouth, remember Simois, that's that river by Troy, that chokes with foliage, bayed for bloody strife, for Troy's blood wedding day. You may not know everything the chorus is talking about, but surely you can hear it's not good. Blood wedding days and trooping armies, all for a Helen who is a hell at the prows, hell at the gates, hell on the men of war. And apparently, Heli is related to the Greek word for destroy. Do you remember in our Odyssey, Penelope would say, destroy? How I hate the name, I like to call it destroy. And it was sort of an English joke on the same thing they did in Greek with the name of Troy. They turned it into a word that meant destruction in Greek, right? So Troy, destroy. Helen is the same sort of thing. Clytemnestra is Helen's sister. Do not forget, Clytemnestra is Helen's sister. One of them was a rotter. One can argue that Helen brought about thousands of deaths. However many thousands of people died there. And we've got a Clytemnestra. Okay, so, yes, Matthew.
Sisters-in-law or
Sisters. The children of Leda.
I was confused as you are.
And their brothers are Castor and Pollux. And their brothers are Castor and Pollux. Castor and Pollux and Clytemnestra and Helen, siblings. Yes, from the sort of the hero time. Yes. Okay. So, yes. Question? Does somebody have a question? Okay. I'm on 755. Oh no, I'm on 751. Only the reckless act can breed impiety, multiplying crime on crime, while the house kept straight and just is blessed with radiant children. Line 755 now. But ancient violence longs to breed. New violence comes when its fatal hour comes. The demon comes to take her toll. Are we with me? No war, no force, no prayer can hinder the midnight fury stamped with parent fury moving through the house. But justice shines in sooty hovels, loves the decent life. These rich houses, that's not where justice hangs out. Justice in sooty hovels, loves the decent life. From proud halls, crusted with gilt, gold, by filthy hands, she turns her eyes to find the pure in spirit. Spurning the wealth, stamped counterfeit with praise, she steers all things towards their destined end. She steers justice, all things to their appointed end, and then Agamemnon comes out onto the stage. Right then at that moment. They've been talking about how violence breeds violence. In those rich houses, justice is far from them. And that justice will win out in the end. And boom, Agamemnon shows up after 10 years. And I asked you what he says in line 832 to 836 that's ironic. I will read it, okay? We must summon the city for trial, found a national tribunal. I've been gone for 10 years. We need to have a meeting. Find out what's going on. Whatever's healthy, shore it up with law and help it flourish. Wherever something calls for drastic cures, we make our noblest effort, amputate, or wield the healing iron, burn the cancer at the roots. What is ironic about Agamemnon saying this? Yeah. You're the cancer, according to some, and you are about to be amputated. And he has no idea. He has no idea. So, Clytemnestra, oh, sweetie, you're home. I'm paraphrasing. And she says, people came, they gave me all these reports that you were dead and all the bad reports I got over these last 10 years. She says, if he took one wound, line 855, if he took one wound for each report to penetrate these walls, he's gashed like a dragnet. Again, a net. He's gashed like a dragnet. If he'd been wounded every time I heard he was wounded, that's what he'd be like. It's gonna be like. Okay. So she says, and this is startling. I love this part. This is at the, so if you go to line 860, and then it's below, a little below 860, and she's talking about rumors, that sometimes when the king is gone, the political situation is iffy, So she says, and so, it's where, turning to Agamemnon, and so our child is gone, not standing by our side, the bond of our dearest pledge, mine and yours. By all rights, our child should be here. Orestes, you seem startled. I sent Orestes, our son, away because of the uncertain political situation. But listen to what she said. So our child is gone. The pledge of our faith to each other is gone. Our child should be standing here, but he's gone. But the child's gone, doesn't say he. And it says, oh, what's the matter, Agamemnon? You seem startled. What's Agamemnon thinking? She's calling me out for Iphigenia. she hasn't forgotten, and apparently he hasn't forgotten either, because it must be the first thing that comes into his head. And then she says, men, it is their nature trampling on the fighter once he's down, to cause insurrection, political insurrection when the king's gone. Our child is gone. That is my self-defense, and it is true. Oh, she's funny, but in a really creepy way. So she spreads out. What does she spread out for him to walk in the house on? Red tapestries. Red, blood red tapestries. And she and he doesn't want to do it. That's kind of prideful, don't you think? And he says, okay, I guess I'll do it. He says, hurry, while I tread his splendors, dyed red in the sea. May no god watch and strike me down with envy from on high. Wait a minute, I'm going back to line 376. That heaven would never stoop to punish men who trample the lovely grace of things. Now I'm back on line 943, while I tread his splendors. Newsflash, Agamemnon, you already trampled on the lovely grace of things. And I sure hope that, I'm skipping up. Well, no, I can't skip up. Okay. Clytemnestra says, do it. I would have sworn to tread on legacies of robes. At one command from an oracle, deplete the house, suffer the worst, to bring that dear life back. She insinuates it's Agamemnon. If it could bring you back, I would have tread on lovely dyed tapestries. But to bring that dear life back. And so he goes in, help, murder. Oh, actually, I'm going to have to, for time constraints, I'm going to have to skip Cassandra. Although, why does Cassandra not want to enter the house? Okay, because she's a prophetess, right? No one ever believes her, remember. But she knows, not only does she know what's going to happen. Yes, she knows the whole curse on the house. She's like, I see blood, walls covered with blood, and children being eaten. And the chorus is like, who told her this story? I see it all, and I'm not going. And okay, so that's my talk about Cassandra, so that I can go. So Cassandra will go in, and I just want to read this. Clytemnestra's like, do you not speak Greek? Do I need a translator here? Hello, go in. And the leader of the chorus says, it's you she's speaking to. It's all too clear. You're caught in the nets of doom. You have to obey. You're caught in the net too. So, all right, let me skip up to, I hate running out of time. Okay. Cassandra talks about the Furies on the house. We don't have time for that. They're Avengers, because children have been eaten. All right. So, okay. So, boom, boom, murder. We wheel out the cart, on wheels, and there they are. Okay. And she stands there basically and says, I did it. And she says, how else to prepare a death for deadly men who seem to love you? How to rig the nets of pain so high no man can overleap them? And then I'm on around line 1401. Our never-ending, all-embracing net, I cast it wide for the royal hall. I coiled him in round and round in the wealth, the robes of doom, and then I strike him once, twice, and at each stroke he cries in agony. She netted him. Right? So, Clytemnestra says this: "You claim this work is mine. Call me Agamemnon's wife. You are so wrong. Fleshed in the wife of this dead man, I may look like his wife. The spirit lives within me." I'm so sorry, I am on around line 1530. "The spirit lives within me, our savage ancient spirit of revenge. In return for Atreus' brutal feast, he kills a perfect son. For every murdered child, a crowning sacrifice. I'm innocent," she claims. "I'm the avenging fury of this house." This is just the acting out of the curse. He brought this on himself. He killed his daughter, and he paid. The chorus is starting to by line 1590, 1600, they're starting to be swayed. "The one who acts must suffer. That is law." Now, originally the chorus was not buying it at all. They came out and, hang on. Oh, I gotta find, this is so good. Oh, okay, it hasn't happened yet. So she claims to be the Fury. She says, 1603, 1604, "Once I have purged our fury to destroy each other, purged it from our halls." It's done now. The whole Atreus curse thing, I'm done. This rotten guy who killed his daughter, gone. Done. I have purged the guilt from the house. And that is not the part I wanted to see. Just a second. Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, I loved it. I read this yesterday and it was awesome. Oh, I love this. Okay. This is back in line 1431, something like that. The chorus says, "Woman, what poison cropped from the soil or strained from the heaving sea? Who nursed you, drove you insane? What's wrong with you?" And she answers back, "And now you sentence me? You banish me from the city, curses breathing down my neck. But he, name one charge you brought against him then. He thought no more of it than killing a beast. And his flocks were rich, teeming in their fleece. But he sacrificed his own child, our daughter. The agony I labored into love to charm away the savage winds of Thrace. Did the law demand you banish him? Hunt him from the land for all his guilt? But now you witness what I've done, and you are ruthless judges. Threaten away. I'll meet you blow for blow, and if I fall, the throne is yours. If God decrees the reverse, late as it is, old men, you'll learn your place." And then Aegisthus comes out at the end, and they say, okay, I'm paraphrasing now. "You pathetic loser, you've been skulking around here for 10 years when all everybody else was fighting at Troy." He comes out and is like, "Yeah, I planned this." You're a dimwit, you didn't plan this. So they said, "But we have an avenger, Orestes." They said, "Maybe Orestes will come and put things to right," because we get the impression, and that's my last question, what's the situation? Aegisthus is not going to be, oh, go ahead, Matthew. What were you going to say for that one? They do, and they don't appear to be using it kindly. Aegisthus says to the chorus, "Talk on! You'll scream for every word, my little Orpheus. We'll see if the world comes dancing to your song, your absurd barking. Snarl your breath away. I'll make you dance. I'll bring you all to heel." That doesn't sound like a real friendly new king. And the Aegisthus says, "I'll stalk you all your days," he says to the old men of Argos. And they said, "Not if the spirit brings Orestes home." And he says, the great line, "Exiles feed on hope." Well, I know, because he was one. One other translation of this says, "Exiles live on hope. I know I was one." Because his dad and the whole eating of his siblings affair. So our situation at the end, I'm sorry I'm keeping you a little over. Our situation at the end is we have brutal regime of Clytemnestra and Aegisthus because they need to keep people in line. But Clytemnestra, here's her position. It's over. Done. The guy who did the injustice, it's done. And the whole curse of Atreus, it's done. But I am so sorry, Clytemnestra, it is not done. It is not done. Read the libation bearers for next week. And Themistocles and Aristides, and just give me your thoughts. Did Agamemnon deserve to die? I'm looking forward to your opinions. All right, see you next week.